Hello there. Hi. Welcome to our second Major Things live stream. Um, we ran into some technical issues yesterday with our first live stream, but those were to be expected. It was the first time doing it, with some lag and some glitches here and there. But hopefully today will run a lot more smoothly than yesterday. And we have another exciting program on the menu for you. We'll be talking about personal films and how you really make personal films. So, welcome to the second Inward Things, Major Things podcast, not podcast, live stream. My name is Robert Jonathan Queers. I'll be one of the two moderators for today. You'll be meeting the other moderator during the Q&A, my colleague Barend Onderweer. And together, since September, we've been guiding the third year animation students from the Willem de Koning Academy during this time where they were tasked, they were sort of like asked to make a self-initiated project. And you can think about video games or short films or VR experiences. They could really make anything that they really wanted to make. And like I mentioned yesterday, some people made experimental films while others made really small and introspective work. And today we'll be focusing mostly on the latter. No matter how big or small their projects were, they all had something or one thing in common, which was, first of all, they all had to make their work during these really strange times where also there was this strange hybrid at the academy where they worked mostly from home, but also a little bit at the academy itself. We were throwing like existential questions their way about who are you, what do you want to do, what do you want to become, and also having to look for an internship, which is also a really stressful thing on its own. Despite all of these things, they all managed to make really meaningful work. And we think that's pretty major of them. So that's what we'll be focusing on today, where we'll be looking at three films by one made by Ming, another one by Isabelle, and the other one by Kameliya. And these are, like I said, personal films made by people that dare to be vulnerable with their work, or to share their feelings about themselves or their thoughts about political issues or political stances. So, without further ado, these are the films, and please stick around until the very end of the films, because we'll be joined by all of the makers, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the process. What was it like? How did they translate their feelings into these films, and what were the hurdles? What were the challenges? So yeah, please stick around until the end, and then we'll actually meet the makers.
Hi, my name is Ming, and I worked on the short film Wisdom Teeth. And for this film, I really wanted to kind of map out and discover how I made my process for short films, and especially in the role of a director, even in the film. I worked together with an animator and a sound designer on this film. And the Wisdom Teeth is based on a diary entry that I wrote somewhere last year. This is the original diary entry, and it contains a lot of words and thoughts on what life was for me at that time. So Wisdom Teeth is a very personal film about becoming older and kind of making your way through life and adjusting to the way life is. And I really didn't want it to be like, a pandemic film, so the events in the film are kind of left open for interpretation, and it's mostly about a feeling of the time, so not necessarily about the pandemic. And because I really wanted to stay true to these personal values, I used a lot of imageries from my real life. So the references I shot were mostly in my own house and of my own parents. And my process for concepting for the film was mostly done within my sketchbook, so mostly doodling stuff out and thumbnailing. So for example, this is a page of thumbnails, and this sketch made its way into the film, and this one. And for me, it's kind of the whole project is this sketchbook alongside with the actual film, because the sketchbook is most of my thoughts, and the film is that it wrapped up for an audience. So Wisdom Teeth, it's I put a lot of heart in it. I put a lot of heart in it, and I hope that resonates with you. Thank you. These are formative times. I used to think that my boundless positivity would burn brightly enough to last me an entire lifetime. Now I'm not so sure anymore. I think being young isn't the blessing it used to be. Now, it just feels like a burden to shoulder. I am afraid that one day I'll wake up and I won't be in love with the world anymore. I've been out of touch with my love lately. It's harder to find joy in a place when everything is so unsure. I think that when the world is ill, when we have to tend to deeper wounds, the heart has no space for simple joys. But you know, within all of this, there are the quiet moments. The moments when the sun has just begun to set and I sit on the balcony to watch. Just to watch. I still feel my breath catching at the leaves billowing in the wind, the smiles of people I see on the street. I still have this. I still have the people I love. The world is still full of beauty, and I am still full of wonder. But I cannot ignore that the world needs to shift. The escape I once found within blue skies and green meadows now just feel like a cowardly recline. I feel these sides have to coexist within me. My joy, my love, my hope. They all have to learn to live alongside this fear and anger. I admit it frightens me a little. I just want us to be able to dream again. To truly dream.
Hi, I'm Isabelle. I'm a character animator with a focus on 2D hand-drawn animation. Because this technique feels really personal for me. It's like in every frame and brushstroke there's a part of the maker in there. And I'm interested in personal character-driven stories, especially revolving around the topic of mental health. The project I'm presenting to you today is a visual poem inspired by my own experiences with mental health issues, especially depression. This topic has kind of always been part of my life because a lot of my family members are working as psychologists. So even before I was aware of my own problems with it, I was confronted with many different stories. And I also think that more people than genuinely expected have a connection to it, either from personal experiences or through a loved one. But it's still not really a topic that is really talked about, which I think is important to create sympathy and understanding for those who are affected, to make it easier for them to seek help. Writing the voiceover was quite a challenge for me because I wanted it to be personal, but also not too revealing or specific, so that other people would still be able to connect to it. By working with different seasons for the voiceover, I wanted to show the change of the mental state over time with all the ups and downs. For the visuals, I took inspiration from some of my old artworks, but in generally visual ideas come a lot easier to me, so I basically only had to loosely assign them to each season. The characters' emotions in this shot are mostly expressed visually, so the framing was really important for me there. So I choose to let the camera slowly drift away from the character to visualize her detachment from the world around her. But that's enough talking for now, so I hope you'll enjoy my movie. It is summer, and the words lay heavy on my tongue. Rigid silence standing between me and the world. My mind is a liar, drowning me in distrust. It is autumn, and the rain is falling down around me without touching my skin. My sleeves gathering those bright red eyes, watching me from every inch of my skin, hungry for more. It is winter, you're staring at my skin, where my strength leaves me pulsing withers, smudging the floor. It is spring, and the world sounds different than before. The blue ink from your letters is fading in the rising sun, but your words start nesting in my mind.
Hello, my name is Kameliya Markovska, and I will present to you now a little bit about my new animation called Populi. It is a mixed media 2D and live action film which deals with the social topics of politics and media censorship. I was inspired to do this from the recent events that were happening in Bulgaria for a very long time. Protests against oligarchy and corruption in the government. What I like about the project is that it is my first time dealing with social issues and reflecting on them. However, what I don't like about it is the execution itself. I feel like during the production of it, which was between September 2020 and January 2021, more or less I was concentrated on everything but the project. This is why you will see some scenes from the film, the ones that I am more or less happy with. About the process itself, I usually prefer to start working with experimentation in the beginning to see how things work and to visualize in my head the project itself. Then I like starting to storyboard. And this is exactly what I did now. The storyboard usually is a very big issue for me. And it took me a very long time to come to a consensus with myself about an agreeable storyboard. And this is it.
Yeah, so those were the films, and we hope, of course, that you enjoyed them. We'll now go on to the after talk part of it, so the Q&A, and we hope that you have any questions. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. We'll try to keep an eye out for the chat, and yeah, we'll try to see if the makers can answer them. So this is everyone. Hello, welcome everyone. First of all, thanks so much for showing your films and making the really lovely process videos. Barent, so this is the colleague that I mentioned in my intro. So together we've been sort of like guiding these students through their through these 3 months of working on their projects. And Barent, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we sort of selected these 3 projects, you know, because they obviously have in common that they are very personal. I think the word personal was sort of like the thread in all your presentations. So I guess the first thing that comes to mind hearing you speak about these projects, was it the first time you made such a personal piece in animation? Maybe we just ask everyone, but not at the same time. So maybe Ming, was it the first time you made such a personal piece in animation?
Yeah, definitely, which was also something that I was really insecure about at the start, because of course you wanted to tell something personal, you want to resonate with people. I think resonating with others was my main goal for this film. But then again, I also didn't want to put too much of myself out there. So finding a balance also between being profound and being cliches was a big focus in the very first part of this project.
When you say you don't want it to be too personal, when would it be too personal? When would it?
I think it would be too personal when it would be so specifically about me that others couldn't relate to it. And I think, or maybe in the sense that it would be such a touchy subject that I would feel uncomfortable showing it to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, but specifically about your film, it was like you say that it was like based on a diary entry, right? Um, it feels very much, it feels very you, and it feels very much about your own experiences. How did you sort of like, how did you translate like the diary entry to a film like yours?
I think the diary entry on its own was already pretty much one-on-one what it is in the film. I think there were maybe a few sentences more to it, but when I tend to write in my diary, it's already kind of a story mode. So I don't necessarily say, "Oh yes, my day was like this." It tend to be these kind of rants or bursts of emotions, which are already kind of poetic in its own sense. So in that way, I just try to stay as true to myself as possible within the voiceover, and just made sure it wasn't too long and that everything that was still there was essential to the message I was trying to bring across, but also make sure that it's still at its core my diary entry and my feelings. So that's kind of how I tackled that.
Right.
Isabelle, was it the first time you made such a personal piece?
No, my very first animation, even before I was at the academy, was also quite personal, but this was the first time where I was like really consciously thinking about how I can put it in visuals and words. So that was still a lot different from the first one.
Yeah, and is that this something you see yourself doing in the future, or
yeah. Yeah, I see it like a lot also when I'm just drawing and doodling or something. I see it like recurring in my work. So it's just a topic that's really a lot in my life.
Yeah, but you see yourself sort of developing as a director and storyteller then to continue making these very personal projects.
Yeah, not only, but also.
Yeah. How do you? I have a follow-up question about that, because how do you deal with such a kind of like personal topic, right? Like your mental health issues within the film, and you also show a very like vulnerable side of yourself in that. How do you kind of navigate that? How do you? Maybe what Bounce was also asking in the beginning, like when is when is something too personal? How do you make sure that it doesn't like hit too close to home?
I don't know, it's really difficult. You just have to try things out, and if you feel uncomfortable to like show it to people, then it's too personal. But like for this specific short film, I also wanted it not to be like autobiography, kind of like, so more generally speaking. So then I had to like simplify things and not make it like too specific to my situation.
Yeah, so that's more also a more universal kind of,
Yeah.
more people can relate to it. Yeah, yeah. All right, Kameliya, do you have an answer for? So the question is, Bounce, could you repeat it?
Well, the first question I was wondering, is this the first time you made such a personal, in your case, maybe it's less about you, but it's definitely about something that's very close to you, which makes it about you, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was the first time for me to draw something from my experiences in my life to, tell them.
Yeah. And you also say in your video that it was also the first time that you dealt with
Fusion of some of the shots. So, but apart from that, are you happy about making a piece that's so personal?
Yeah, for sure. I am very happy to take this first step because in the future I want to continue dealing with personal and personally social topics in general. Yeah.
So that answers the question I asked Isabelle in a way. Yeah, you see yourself developing that as a practice in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And of course, this is probably the first time we show it to a slightly broader audience. So do you feel different about the project now than you felt maybe when you recorded the presentation?
Yeah, well, looking at it now, I am saying to myself, well, it doesn't look that bad. So, but that's also because I put the parts that I like the most. But in the future, I think it will get better with experience.
So how much did you cut out? How long is the original film?
I cut maybe like half of it. So more or less, yeah. In like the full is 1 minute, and because there's more anticipation, and here I didn't put all of it.
Yeah.
I just put some shots that I'm more proud of.
Mm-hmm. What I found interesting about your process video is that it is a more sort of like compared to the other two films. It's more on the political end, right? It's you have a sort of like strong stance about
Yes.
something, and but still you show like this footage of a protest. I assume that you shot that yourself.
Yeah.
So,
It was over the summer because the protests were for about 100 days every day. So before going to the Netherlands, I was almost every day there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, seeing that footage, it's sort of like it reminds me of how I remember also in the very beginning of this project, you were already thinking about you had these questions about can I say certain things, or can I sort of like make something and then not hold too strong of a sort of like political stance or something like that. But seeing that footage, it reminds me that it started from a very personal space or a very personal place. Do you still feel like, would you call your film personal?
Well, yes and no, because from one side, it is really drawn from things that I experienced and that really like influenced me like over the last year. But also, it doesn't deal with my personal problems and issues in life, and so kind of.
Yeah. We are really like clearly looking through your lens, I guess, and how you look at certain issues.
Yeah.
And Isabelle, what for you? Like, what came first? Because you wrote sort of like a visual, or you made a visual poem, and there's a lot that comes that sort of like is thrown at you when you're working on a visual poem. There's like the poem part of it. There's like the visuals. It's the marriage of the two. How did you sort of like manage this? What came first for you? The words, or the images, or the structure, or the ideas?
Like a lot of visuals came first, and I just kind of collected them, and I started writing some words and phrases for the poem, and like slowly started to put it all together and then refine it, and but like visuals always came first with me.
Yeah. So first the visuals, and then what was like the hardest part for you?
Like in general, or
Yeah,
on
or
the writing?
out of those things that you just mentioned, the images and the words and
The words.
the words, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it just like Ming? Could you like base it off of something like a diary entry, or was it just really you started off from the images?
I don't know. It wasn't really a diary or something, but like songs I listen to or books I read, or also just certain words. And then, like with a word, there comes a sentence, and then there comes a phrase, and so it just builds up.
Mhm. Yeah. And are there any?
Yeah, there's a real cool audience question, which is, I guess, directed to Ming, because Ming, you mentioned that you collaborated on this project, and the question is how you experienced that. But I would say, how do you experience collaboration in a project that's so personal?
Yeah, so I was really careful about deciding who I wanted to work with because it's so personal. But this project was also for me kind of a setup for an opportunity to work together with, for example, a really close friend of mine is also an animator, and she wanted to help me for free, which was really great. And I'm forever thankful. But this was also kind of an opportunity for us to see how the two of us would work together in such a with a deadline and with an actual project that needed to be delivered. So that's why mostly decided to work with her. And all the other people that helped me out were really just people around me, because I've noticed throughout the years, I've noticed that I actually have quite a broad network of creative people around me, yet I never ask for help. So at this point, I've said to myself, why wouldn't I utilize this network of knowledge and creativity around me, because it's right there. So that's what I did a lot in this project, just ask people around me, hey, seem to know a lot about this, could you help me out for a bit? And so that was mostly how that worked. But I think a tip for me would be, if you're working together with people you're close with or friends with, is to have set boundaries and to know your strengths and weaknesses, and always communicate clearly and say what you want. And also be nice, but generally it's important to set rules and be clear, because you're still making a project. Yeah,
Would you do it again?
definitely. I would definitely do it again. It was really fun. And one of my favorite things about working together with other people is that they get to fill in your faults. Well, faults, weaker parts. So, for example, together you can create something that is so much more vibrant and alive compared to doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite things, is seeing that come together in the end.
I mean, talking about that, right? Like the words that you just mentioned, like vibrant and alive. Like if you look at the imagery itself of your film, it's also very colorful and it has a very like distinct style. Like to what extent does your visual style feel personal, or how much of yourself are you putting into the visual component of your film?
Well, I'd say quite a bit. A lot of it is personal taste, and I tend to create a visual style around what I think is visually pleasing and how I would like to translate my views on the world into an image. Because I think a lot of my work boils down to me being really appreciative of the world around me and really enjoying the small things in life. So kind of elevating that joy into a visual image is kind of what drives me into creating a style.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, to me at least, looking at it, it really felt like that. Like that sunset is like a sunset, you know? It's like, it's really sort of like a sunset to a next level, and it's sort of really all very beautiful. Isabelle, would you say that you have like a distinct visual style?
I don't know, probably. I mean, my last two projects were kind of semi-realistic, but now I'm working on more cartoony stuff. But I think, yeah, when it comes to like stuff with deadlines, I tend to go back to like what I feel comfortable with, and that's just semi-realistic style. So I guess that's kind of my style, my go-to style.
Yeah. You also, yeah, you showed in your process video, you also showed like the sketchbook that you made with like, and I guess that's where you also drew a lot of inspiration from, like maybe story-wise, but also maybe style-wise.
Yeah, mostly like for the story and for the visuals, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what about you, Kameliya? Do you have like would you say you have a style?
Yeah, I think so. I really like colorful
Mhm.
things, like with the good color palette, you know.
Yeah,
And I think also now I'm really at my internship, I'm developing it a lot more. And yeah, but you can also see it in this animation.
yeah, yeah. Balance.
Yeah, there's a question about Ming's project. Why is it called Wisdom Teeth?
Yeah, so of course, I've mentioned before this film is about growing older, not necessarily growing up, because I didn't want it to be, you know, kind of like the coming of age kind of thing, because I feel I'm past that at this point in my life. I called it Wisdom Teeth because it's about being an adult and yet still discovering new ways you look at the world. And well, my wisdom teeth, they haven't really grown in yet. But it's something that I know is going to happen probably at some point, and they might have to be removed. And wisdom teeth, it's all that because it's kind of a complicated situation, and you have to learn how to adjust to that. And about the growing pains that come with it, about finding out new perspectives on life as you grow older and not necessarily as you grow up. So that's why it's called wisdom teeth.
Yeah. Maybe for the rest also, what's the reason behind the titles? Isabelle? Winter in My Bones?
Yeah, so the winter comes because I work with like the seasons, and it's kind of like the depression in your body kind
Yeah.
of. So
Sets in, it seeps in. Yeah, yeah. Kameliya?
Yeah, I think mine is very straightforward. It's Vox Populi, which is voice of the people. So
Yeah,
basically, the voice of the protesting people,
right.
raising their voice against whatever they fight for.
Yeah. Was it difficult to come up with the title for you, or were you like set from the beginning of like this is gonna be the title?
Yeah, it was set from the
Okay.
beginning.
Good. Yeah. Speaking about voice, what I found interesting about both Isabelle's and Ming's projects was that you both narrated it yourself as well. So even though you yourself are not in the film, there's still a piece of you, at least sound wise, in the film. How did that choice happen, or how did you decide on that? Isabelle, let's start with you.
Okay. Yeah, for me it was because it was such a personal project. I didn't want it to be narrated by someone else, but yeah, to have like the connection to myself.
Yeah. Were you ever at one point considering asking someone else, or were you like,
Yeah, I was, because I'm very unconscious like about this stuff. So yeah, but I thought
And
it.
you also, I think, mentioned that you don't necessarily feel the project is autobiographical, right? I mean, you're trying to sort of, but at the same time, you feel that it's important to use your own voice.
Yeah, I think it's like a mix of like personal stuff and stuff like stories from friends or family, or like even people I don't really know. But yeah, this mix is just, yeah, makes it personal.
yeah? Ming, same question for you. Your voice is also very prominently featured in your short film. How was that for you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, same as Isabel, I felt it would be weird to give it out of hands to someone else, especially since it's based on a diary entry. But I also thought it would be good for the viewer to be aware of me as a maker. And of course, because you can tell that I'm not a professional voice actor, you can tell that it's probably the maker of the film that is narrating it. And I think that adds to the emotional value of the film. And it also it felt right for me, and it also really tied in with staying true to myself and the essence of the film. So that's why I decided to do it myself.
Yeah, yeah. Kameliya, do you feel like your film needed narration?
No, I like to make my films without narrative voice.
Yeah, it's more the visuals that you want to speak for.
Yeah, I like it.
So, Kameliya, what did you find most difficult about the project? What was the biggest challenge?
Yeah, well, storyboarding, as I said, and bringing what was into my head, because I had so many ideas. And at the beginning, I was a lot like experimenting with collaging, video montaging, and I didn't know which technique to be the leading one as well, because I liked all the things. And just coming to a consensus with myself, really, about everything.
Yeah.
So I asked for feedback a lot.
Yeah. And do you have any, I mean, that's a question from our audience, but it ties in there, I think, nicely. What do you have any advice for let's say, next year students, but also anyone else who watches this stream or, the video later on, about making such a personal project? Any tips?
Well,
or what would you have liked to have known before you started this project?
Yeah, just to go more lightheartedly into it, not to really so much focus and close myself into the project, and just really try to be more free in it, really. Because I think this also limited me a lot. I limited myself a lot. So yeah, I would say be more chill.
Yeah. In your process video, you also described that you're not fully satisfied with the execution part of the film. When it comes to animation, how do you sort of steer that ship as you're already fully in process mode? If you're really sort of in production mode, how do you, I don't know, how do you deal with an animation as you're not really liking all components of it?
Yeah, I kind of heard half of the question, but I think the last half of the question. I don't know. I was just redoing the parts that I didn't like. So that's why I also say that I wasn't very free with it, because I was really looking into details and into one scene for a lot of time. And I think this really held me back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isabelle, did you have a moment during your production phase where you had this sort of come to terms with what you had done, or you sort of liked it more than at other times, or disliked it more?
Yeah, definitely. The beginning went pretty smooth. I started with all the small shots in between, and but when I started with the first shot where you see the hands in close up, that took me a lot longer than I had expected. So I had to push the rest further and further, and think about how I can make up the time in the end. Yeah.
Did you have to cut out anything out?
No.
Okay, everything is in there.
Yeah, but one of the shots isn't I planned to fully animate everything, but I used some tricks in After Effects to make it look finished.
It looks finished.
It looks finished. It is finished.
Yeah, it is finished now. But I had to decide to not fully animate it, but use some effects.
So maybe, if you could go back and have and formulate some advice for yourself, half a year ago, what would it be? What would you have liked to have known before you started this?
Sometimes I have to do less and also take some time off. to like get a fresh view on the things and have fresh energy for stuff. Because I was really non-stop working on weekends, on evenings. So it was a bit ironic because it was such a personal topic about depression and stuff, and I wasn't really so much taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I saw Kameliya nodding while you said that.
Yeah. I relate to that. Yeah, good advice.
Yeah. How was the process itself for you, Ming? Was it difficult? Because it was a lot. There's a lot of shots in your film, a lot of backgrounds to design, a lot of stuff, things moving. So how was it for you?
Yeah, well, I think it went quite smoothly. It went smoother than expected. But I think what really helped in this is that I was really strict about deciding when I was going to work and when I was going to take a break and how my workspace looked. For example, I moved back in with my parents, but for this project, I moved to Rotterdam to really focus on this film. So I kind of created a kind of studio environment for myself so I could really have work and personal life in a good separate balance. And I also told myself you're going to plan stuff out and you're going to stick to the planning for once, which mostly worked out. But also because since I'm working with other people, I'm not only responsible for myself, and I know that that's a thing I struggle with. If I have the freedom, I will take it. So if I limit myself by being responsible for other stuff, then it works much better for me. So I think that's played a big part in having a good work structure and overseeing all these different aspects.
Yeah. The importance of a planning, right?
Well, I guess it's easy to plan. It's hard to stick to it, I guess. And I think Ming mentioned something interesting that you sort of artificially introduced sort of a sense of urgency because you worked in a team and you collaborated, and that meant that you had responsibilities beyond maybe yourself or the deadline. So that's interesting. So I think there was already some advice in your response, in the sense, for possible future students thinking about this, about collaboration and things like that. But do you have any other things you would have liked to have known before this project?
I think looking back, I think it would have been good for me to be more open about my work towards the people around me, because I made a personal film and it was all about personal stuff and connection and whatever. But I feel that I felt very shy showing it to other people, and that made it hard for me now to show it while it's finished. And I think it's good to talk to other people around you when you're making personal work. And especially since the aspect of physical classes fell away, and usually you get feedback from that now I felt I was in my little bubble of making this project. And I think it's always good to get feedback from a very broad audience, and when you're making personal work, to see how people react to it.
Yeah. How do you feel now, showing the film?
I feel really disconnected from it, which is really weird, but I think it's a normal thing that if you, in your mind, you're like, oh, it's done, it's over, I don't want to look at it anymore. I think it's a very common thing with films, but it's kind of weird for me now to feel so disconnected from it, because there was such a big period where this was my whole life. So it's a funny thing.
Yeah. Is it the same for you, Isabelle?
Yeah, I guess.
Do you feel, did you share like the same sort of like anxiety about sort of like showing it to an audience, because it is so vulnerable, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like showing it to people I know and who know like my story, that was really strange, because then I know that they will like see my story in there, and if I show it to someone who doesn't know me, they just see the story. So that was strange and awkward.
Yeah. Kameliya, what about you?
Not so much. Yeah, no, it for me it doesn't really feel like that. I don't like opening yourself and making myself vulnerable. Not so much.
No. Were you nervous about showing it?
Yeah, like always. Not just about this animation, but in general, with everything.
Just anything that you make, it's like always like this sort of like a little bit of nerve, like you're a little bit
Yeah, a
nervous
little bit
about.
of nerve. Yeah.
Well, I feel like a live stream is a really good way of making yourself sort of like uncomfortable a little bit, but also
It is true.
Yeah.
I feel different since the beginning to now.
Yeah. Are there any other questions, Baron?
I think we've covered most of the ones. I mean,
I think someone had a very specific question for Ming about like how you make your color palettes. Do you have like a technique, a hidden secret formula?
No. Like I said, I tend to really fall back on combinations that I really like. So mostly it's just, I use a lot of pink and purple and a lot of blues and orange, if that helps, I guess. But I tend to use a lot of contrasting colors and just picking one or two main colors for each scene and then kind of rolling with that. But I don't think I'm necessarily the person to ask for color palettes per se, but I think my advice would be look up very pretty pictures and try to flesh it out into a few colors, because I think usually with color palettes less is more.
Yeah.
And, yeah, just save a lot of pictures that you like. That's usually what I do.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see your like your mood boards and your Pinterests and stuff like that.
I think they should be somewhere. I don't know if I've ever shared them online, but I mean, maybe if I can put them into something presentable and not like this huge file of improperly named files.
Right.
I'm getting better at it, though.
Yeah. Are there any?
Well, one of the questions was, what did you think about each other's work? So maybe that's a nice one to wrap up with.
Yep.
And don't hold back.
Yeah. I really liked both of yours animations. I even commented in the little chat we have here going on.
Yeah, behind the scenes, everyone was expressing their admiration for each other.
Yeah, so I really like, as we talked earlier, about the color palettes and how personal they are. It really feels like you're communicating to us a lot of yourselves.
Isabelle?
Yeah, I also like both projects. Like, I don't know, like the color part is always very fascinating for me because I feel like I'm not good at colors. So whenever I see like pretty colors together, I'm like, oh my God, that's so pretty. Yeah.
And Ming, what did you think?
For me, it was just really, really fun to see how both Isabelle and Kameliya have developed themselves, because of course I've seen their work before, but this was really a film that you could really build up from the bottom to the top, and it kind of blew me away how much more you guys could do than what I've seen before, and it's really nice to see how you both really developed your own style and identity as a maker. To see that through a film was really fun and really inspiring.
Yeah, beautiful words.
That's a very nice answer. Very well put. Wow.
Yeah. So lastly, what are you guys working on now? What is everyone doing?
I mean, we're in an internship, so we can't really talk about like details, I guess.
What internship are you at?
I'm at Knoff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a studio in Rotterdam, and we're working on like a cartoon series for kids.
Yeah. You already mentioned that, right? Like, now you have to like work on a sort of completely different sort of style and stuff like that. How are you managing that?
It's going okay, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kameliya.
I am at a studio doing an internship in Bulgaria, in Sofia. And right now we are working on a project, like making a video clip animation for a punk song of a Bulgarian group. And it has been very fun so far. I've been 23 days into this. And it's exciting, and I'm enjoying even storyboarding, and it's great.
Very
I'm
nice.
in love.
And Ming?
Doing an internship at Studio Pupil in Amsterdam, and right now I'm working on a cliffhanger, which is a format of explanations that you can find on YouTube, and they're all about explaining difficult things to a broad audience, but it's specifically aimed at a younger audience. So yeah, the one I'm working on right now is about racism, so it's very big word to tackle.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, I think if the audience is like excited to see more, they can follow the Major Things Instagram, and then they can find your handles there, your Instagram handles, to follow you and to see more. Thank you again for showing your films, showing your beautiful works, and for joining the after talk. I know some of you were a little bit nervous, but went all right. And Barend, also thank you for helping with the moderation.
Yes, well, I think it was really nice to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And hopefully everyone and our audience will be back tomorrow for round 3.
Right, yeah. And speaking of round 3, tomorrow we'll be taking a look at we'll be going back to the basics. We'll be talking about storyboards and animatics and animation tests and all of these different things that sort of like the very foundations of animation. So like I said, if you want to see more of these projects or find out more about the makers, please check out the Major Things Instagram. The handle will be on screen in a little bit. And yeah, please check in again tomorrow, same time, 8:00 p.m. And yeah, have a nice evening.
Click like and subscribe.
What Kameliya said, click like and subscribe. Okay, bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.